We'll jump into today's episode right after this announcement. For over 13 years, something remarkable has been happening. Rural hospitals and other small healthcare organizations that have partnered with Capstone have been achieving results and forming workplace cultures that even we are blown away by. It is truly a game changer when rural hospitals are the provider of choice and employer of choice so they can keep care local and margins strong. Far more healthcare organizations need to experience what's possible. That's why we're stepping forward in a bigger way, expanding our team of experts, expanding our capabilities by adding a strategic planning division to expand our ability to help even more rural hospitals and other healthcare organizations in 2026 and beyond. Capstone will continue to be the partner that small healthcare organizations can count on to meet them where they're at and guide them towards a stronger future. You can learn more at capstoneleadership.net. And sometimes we think, how can we ask busy people already to do more or put more effort and engage more, contribute more, get more creative, etc. But, in healthcare, our patients, our communities compel us to do just that. We're not just winning a trophy here, people. We are running organizations. We are improving and growing organizations that make a difference to humans, to people, to their health, to their safety, to their lives. We should win at that.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzloff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Culture Change RX. And this is me, Sue Tetzloff, co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions, here with you today with a solo episode that we call a Culture Bite. And the focus of today's episode is on setting hard and challenging goals. A lot of organizations right now, a lot of teams and departments and even individuals are setting goals right now as we end one year and get ready for the next. And what our work has shown over the last almost 14 years is that soft or easy goals just don't serve us. When we set goals that are on the higher end of difficulty, not impossible, but really challenging and on the higher end of difficulty, it is amazing to see how people rise up to meet that challenge. It's like a sports team, right? If you're going into an easy game where your opponent is not very hard to beat, you don't have to play very hard. You don't have to give your best effort. Some of your players don't even maybe have to show up and play, and you're still going to win. That is not the kind of goals that we're talking about when we are a team or a department or an entire organization that really wants to be a winning one, right? We want to improve. We want to grow. We want to succeed. And soft goals just aren't going to get us there. They are too easy of an opponent. So hard goals, very challenging. That does mean that we need fewer of them, but that's not really the focus of today. But just a word of caution there and advice and counsel is that if we have too many goals, they can't be hard, right? Because that just doesn't make any sense to have too many really hard goals. There just isn't enough time, energy, and resource to achieve too many really big goals. So less is more. But let's talk about those hard goals. Why is it important to set hard goals and have a challenging opponent? Meaning that target, that metric, that result that's going to take an all in effort by everyone to achieve. Well, there is research or theory behind this, setting hard goals. Edwin Locke, his theory going back a long time ago, speaks to having very challenging goals. They can't be impossible, but very challenging. And when they are, what happens is that we get increased performance. So, increased motivation, increased performance when we are up against very specific, challenging goals. And so that's what we want, right? When we are an organization or a department or a team that is making something better for the future, we want increased performance. We want increased motivation to help us reach that goal. And that is a byproduct of a challenging or difficult goal. So goals on the higher end of difficulty. What we also know in watching many, and I mean dozens, maybe even hundreds of departments now, but definitely dozens of entire organizations that set organization goals, is that when there are challenging, difficult, hard goals on the higher end of difficulty, is that what happens to surface is solutions. So creativity is sparked. So beyond motivation and performance being elevated, I find, and our coaches observe, that creativity is sparked as well. So this starts to surface solutions, creative solutions. So when we have a challenging goal, the answer to how to get there isn't always as obvious. And so that does spark creativity and new creative solutions. So that's actually really exciting. That is how some new things are uncovered, is when we are chasing a big goal. We have to get creative. We can't do things the way we've always done things or borrow solutions that aren't going to give us the big results. So that's another benefit of challenging goals, is that it will help surface creative solutions. A third thing that I find really exciting about what challenging goals does for a department or a team or entire organization is that it also surfaces issues or challenges that are going to get in the way of achieving the goal. And if we set an easy goal or target, those challenges or issues might stay buried. They might continue to be tolerated. They might continue to be ignored, to simmer and brew. But yet, when faced with a big challenge, now we are like, oh, wow, we've been kicking that can down the road and we've been ignoring that problem or issue or challenge. But now we can't do that anymore if we really want to reach this goal. So it is time to deal with this challenge. And we might need a creative solution and lots of motivation to be able to go after that challenge. But this is where organizations sometimes feel that setting the hard goal, like, it's like, maybe that was wrong. Maybe we didn't want to have this issue surface. And you think that setting the goal is wrong because it created the knowledge that this challenge or issue or problem had to be addressed and that we can't ignore it any longer. And that feels like a downside of setting hard goals, but it's actually a good thing, because these issues, challenges, or problems that we've let lie and that are boiling there under the surface, maybe in our organization, it's time now to surface them and deal with them if they're getting in the way of us achieving these big goals. And they may be some of the change challenges that we assess our partner organizations for, such as a burdensome bureaucracy or unclear decision-making rights and responsibilities. It could be dysfunction in the senior leadership team or certain relationships. etc. Could be data issues. I mean, it could be all sorts of things, but we've just tolerated them and not put the effort into addressing them. But now that we have this big goal and that challenge or issue or problem is standing in our way, it's time to get at it. And probably lots of other things, not just our goal will get better and our movement towards our goal will get easier and faster once we address this. But usually, this one issue, challenge, or problem that surfaces when we're chasing a big goal is something that was interfering with other things, not just this goal. So it kind of puts it on the timeline and the action plan to get it done. The next thing, or the fourth thing I wanted to talk about today, related to why it's so important as we get ready for this new year to go after hard goals, is that it really does invite people to engage. So Edwin Locke in his research talked about increasing motivation and performance, but we know that it calls people to engage differently, contribute differently, and it requires, that all-in effort by everyone. When you have an easy goal, not everyone may have to show up and offer up ideas, suggestions, or even participate in the solution. But when you have a big goal, it really prompts us to all engage, that we really are going to need a team effort. We're going to need everyone to be part of it and to contribute. And in organizations that are high ranking and top ranking and performing, they have high engagement and people are contributing to ongoing improvement and success. And so one way to spark that in your organization is by setting hard goals, big goals on the higher end of difficulty, just shy of impossible. So really big, challenging goals. And when you do all of this, right, when you set these goals for all of those reasons, what you really find in the end is you end up making more progress in less time. So if you set a big goal for the year, and even if you don't reach it and you fall short, and usually if you do, you just fall a little bit short, you're probably going to make more progress in that year than you would have by setting soft goals 3, 4, 5 years in a row. So when we work with our partner organizations in setting up their goal cycle and teaching their leaders and teams and organization to set goals, obviously setting goals on the higher end of difficulty is one of the things that we coach them and train them to. And we do that because we really do want them to see this kind of progress being made in a shorter amount of time. And so it is, just so rewarding and exciting to see results moving this fast. And setting hard goals is part of the process. And, truly, I think we often as humans do underestimate what is possible. We maybe think that this level of speed and progress isn't available to us in our organization. But time and time again, our partner organizations that we work with are showing what is possible and demonstrating what is possible, the amount of progress that can be made and sustained in a shorter amount of time. I was inspired this past baseball season by the Toronto Blue Jays. My husband is from Canada, so he actually, once all the American teams that he likes to root for, like Detroit and Philly, are out of the running, he likes to cheer on his Toronto Blue Jays. And so this year, they made it to the World Series. And obviously that was a hard goal for them to think about making it to the World Series in 2025, because in 2024, they were last in the AL East. So they had a losing season and were last in their division. And so they really went from having a really, tough year and bad results as far as their win-loss record and where they ended up in the standings, and they didn't make the World Series, to 1 year later making it to the World Series and losing it right at the end. But my goodness, if they hadn't set that big goal, picked themselves up and dusted themselves off after 2024, they would have made and had soft goals maybe to, go from the bottom of the league to the middle of the league in 1 year. No, they didn't. They went right to the top and right to the World Series. And so that's what our organizations can do too. That's what our departments can do too. So if you're sitting there right now going, oh, we're having a losing year or a losing season, and I can't even imagine setting big goals for next year. Soft goals even seem like too much. I'm just going to invite you here today to think about, let's go from maybe being at the bottom of the league to being in the World Series next year by setting big goals and having our sights on getting that far, even all the way to the World Series. Slow incremental improvement, it just isn't very exciting. And in fact, it's really hard to maintain excitement, motivation, engagement towards something, again, that's just too easy. And sometimes we think, how can we ask busy people already to do more or put more effort and engage more, contribute more, get more creative, etc. But, in healthcare, our patients, our communities compel us to do just that. We're not just winning a trophy here, people. We are running organizations. We are improving and growing organizations that make a difference to humans, to people, to their health, to their safety, to their lives. We should win at that. That is what we're here for when we work in healthcare, either clinically or non-clinically, whatever your role is. If you're part of a healthcare organization, we are compelled to be at the top and to serve to that level for the people that count on us, the patients, the community members that want to rely on their healthcare organization to be the very best and provide safe and satisfying care, and to be a great place to work for people that decide to serve in organizations like healthcare organizations. And so there's work to be done. There's goals to be set and achieved. And let's set them on the higher end of difficulty and not be going after small, slow, incremental increases year after year, inching our way to improvement. Let's skyrocket our way to results and improvement. And one definite way that will help your team, your department, your organization do just that is to set a small number of big goals. Small number, big goals, higher end of difficulty, almost like I'm not sure we can reach it. All in effort by everyone. We're creative, we're engaged, we're motivated, we're putting in the effort. That's what we want for 2026 and beyond. So I'm cheering you on to much success as you set big goals and go after them. Thanks for being here for another episode of Culture Change RX. As you know, we release a new episode each Wednesday. Stay tuned week after week for more inspiration as we equip and inspire others for positive change in healthcare, one episode at a time. And if you could do us a favor and rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us on, as well, please share with others. Let people know that the podcast exists, and even maybe take this episode or one of your other favorite episodes and pass it on to a colleague or someone in your network. We'd very much appreciate it. See you next time on another episode of Culture Change RX. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.